What does it take to become a person? Is it flesh and bone, the heartbeat in your chest, or thoughts and feelings? Maybe it's all of the above. This is a tough philosophical question that's hard to nail down, especially in the DC universe, where there is a hero who was never born, has never breathed, and never aged a single day, yet spent his entire existence chasing the one thing that most people take for granted: humanity. His name is Red Tornado, a living storm wrapped in steel, a machine that learned heroism before he learned emotion. At the centre of his story across various forms of media is what it means to be human, and I think that this was perfectly distilled in Batman, the Brave and the Bold. Now, before getting to that, I need to set the scene by discussing his comic book origins. Red Tornado first appeared in Justice League of America number 64, published in 1968. He was a robot that was created on Earth 2, home of the Justice Society of America, by the villainous Professor T.O. Morrow. One thing that's crucial to note is that in the Silver Age of comics, DC reinvented many of their classic heroes with a science fiction twist, most notably reimagining the Green Lanterns as space cops. Red Tornado was another reinvention. The original was Ma Hunkel, a very early female superhero and founding member of the Justice Society of America. She was more of a comedic figure with her clearly homemade costume, check out the pot she wears for a helmet, but her identity was rooted in nurturing and family. The new Red Tornado, however, has no identity of his own. Originally, his face was entirely featureless beneath his mask, and that was a core part of his early stories. Red Tornado represents DC's long-running fascination with reinvention, identity, and the idea that humanity isn't defined by flesh, but by your actions. Despite being created by a supervillain, Red Tornado was intrinsically heroic. He didn't know that he had been designed to infiltrate and sabotage the Justice Society. But even once he found out the truth, he made the conscious decision to be heroic. Eventually, his blank face was replaced with a more realistic face, and he took the name John Smith. He formed a small family of his own with his girlfriend Kathy Sutton and an adopted daughter, Treya. And that would have been a decent enough story about the nature of humanity and what it means to be a hero. But the writers at DC decided to add a convoluted wrinkle or two along the way. In the 1980s, Red Tornado's origins were expanded. While he was still an android, it was revealed that his body unknowingly housed two alien wind entities that wanted to try their hand at being a hero. The Tornado Tyrant had originated on the planet Rann and was defeated by Adam Strange. It, along with its counterpart, the Tornado Champion, headed to Earth where they were defeated by the Justice League. Humbled by the defeat, the Tornado Tyrant agreed to fuse with the Tornado Champion and take up residence in T.O. Morrow's android, conveniently losing their memory of it in the process. So this change essentially made Red Tornado a fusion of a sentient being or two and a machine, while technically not quite being either of them. This meant that whenever a story called for a hero to dramatically sacrifice their life, the writers could use Red Tornado, safe in the knowledge that he could be rebuilt. Over the years, additional changes were made, things like him becoming Earth's air elemental after Crisis on Infinite Earths, or acting as a chaperone for the Young Justice team, but at his core, family has been front and centre. And that's exactly what Batman, the Brave and the Bold's team latched onto. Now, I should add that, yes, Red Tornado has appeared in Justice League Unlimited, but he didn't have a starring role in any episodes. He was just a cameo character, someone for comic book fans to point at and go, "Oh, I know who that is!" Brave and the Bold, however, put him to very good use. Instead of slavishly reproducing the convoluted comic book continuity, the show reimagined it in a heartfelt way. Essentially, Red Tornado is an examination of what it means to be alive. In his first starring episode, Invasion of the Secret Santas, Red Tornado spends the opening part of the story trying to spark the Christmas spirit within himself. By day, he acts as a university lecturer, teaching archaeology, the literal study of civilizations. But after saving two children from an out-of-control vehicle, their father thanks Red Tornado and brings up the Christmas spirit. Puzzled, Red Tornado hits the books to try and understand this absent feeling. Now, one of the things I really like about their interpretation of Red Tornado and Corey Burton's performance is how Red Tornado is coded as neurodivergent. He experiences emotions in a different way. He would argue that he has no emotions, that he just mimics things he's seen on TV or read in books. And that may sound familiar to some viewers on the autistic spectrum who feel that they have to mask or put on pretenses just to get through the day. But in his search for the Christmas spirit, Red Tornado hits the books and simulates human rituals like going Christmas caroling, decorating his home, and putting on a hideous sweater. The problem is that it's all performative and he feels nothing. And when the villain Funhouse attacks the city as part of his scheme to steal all of the children's toys, there's a very clear comparison to be made between actual robots and Red Tornado. If we look at Funhouse's Santa robots, for instance, they truly are unfeeling. They have no agency or individual personality, they just follow orders and are completely soulless. Funhouse's machines are literal tools. Red Tornado, however, makes choices. He decides to help people, even to his own detriment. In order to defeat Funhouse, he pushes himself beyond his limits, causing his body to explode. In the moments leading up to the explosion, Red Tornado reports a tingling feeling, a wonderful sensation as he puts it, and it makes him smile. And he's not faking it, that is a genuine feeling. Fortunately, the explosion wasn't fatal. His body may have shattered, showering the people in a snow-like dust, but he could be rebuilt. And that exploration of humanity continued in his final major episode. In Hail the Tornado Tyrant, Red Tornado summons Batman to his lab to witness the birth of his son, Tornado Champion. Now, when I say birth, I mean he's basically being switched on. He is a robot after all. While Champion's design mirrors his own, he has given him an emotional upgrade in the hopes that he will be more human and not struggle with life the way Red Tornado has. He may say he wanted someone there to observe the results, but what he actually means is he wanted to share the joyous event with a friend. And I particularly enjoy how Champion's design matches the original Red Tornado look from the comics, with the purple cape. However, after his birth, it seems like Champion's emotional chip isn't functioning. He is just as neutral as his father, at least until he gets struck by a lightning bolt summoned by Major Disaster. This kickstarts an emotional shift in him. He begins to question his existence and if humans are really worth saving. To Red Tornado, that isn't even a question. Of course they are. But after some negative experiences with humans, witnessing pollution of the oceans, irrational fears and hatred, Champion starts to think that they've made a mistake in protecting people, and he runs away from his father. When Major Disaster tries to escape from prison, Red Tornado is injured just as Champion returns, and he flies into a rage. Major Disaster is symptomatic of everything wrong with humanity, and Champion tries to take him down. This brings him into conflict with Batman and his father, who team up to stop him. Logically, Red Tornado argues his experiment was a failure and he must deactivate his son. However, Champion foresaw this scenario and removed the internal failsafe. Realizing that his father is now against him and Batman cannot be trusted, Champion uses the machinery in the lab to construct a larger, more powerful body and renames himself the Tornado Tyrant. This is a very elegant way of incorporating the convoluted comic book history with the two alien tornado entities. Here, it's reimagined as a rebellious son, the classic child-parent conflict, just told through two androids instead. As the Tornado Tyrant, he plans to summon up massive tidal waves to destroy Coast City, and then every city on Earth. Unsurprisingly, this results in a battle between the father and the son. Red Tornado had upgraded one of Batman's gadgets with a program that will disable Tornado Tyrant. He just has to get close enough to use it. So while Red Tornado distracts him and takes quite a beating, Batman dives in and uses the device to cause Tyrant to short circuit. That could have been the end of it. He had been defeated, but Red Tornado makes a heavy decision by shattering Tyrant's body. And we can clearly see from his own body language that this decision weighs heavily on him. Yes, it is logical and probably was the right thing to do, but it obviously pains him. As the boy's father, cleaning up his son's mess is his responsibility though. When Batman tries to comfort him, Red Tornado once again brings up the fact that he is a machine, he cannot feel emotions, he is simply repeating behaviour that he has seen elsewhere. I think he needed to say that to try to convince himself, because after he completely destroys Tyrant's body and is left alone, a single tear comes from his eye. He passes it off as a leak and decides to run a diagnostic, but I think we all know the truth. Red Tornado is not a mere machine, he's something else. He may not technically be human, but he is very clearly a person. So after everything in Red Tornado's history, the reboots, the retcons, the constant rebuilding, we end up circling back to a surprisingly simple question. What does it actually mean to be a person? If humanity were just biology, then Red Tornado never had a chance. He was constructed, not born, remember. And yet, almost every version of Red Tornado pushes back against the idea that biology is a key component of sentience. In the comics, he keeps trying to live among humans, taking on different identities, forming relationships, and even becomes a father figure. Whether he's mentoring young heroes or trying to build a life with people like Kathy Sutton and Treya, there's always this underlying idea that humanity isn't something you're born with, it's something you practice. That idea becomes much clearer in Batman the Brave and the Bold, which strips the character back to his essentials. This Red Tornado doesn't get lost in complicated continuity or cosmic mythology. Instead, the story focuses on something much more relatable, a machine trying to understand people well enough to belong among them. And that's where the character really lands. Red Tornado becomes human because of the choices he makes, especially the difficult ones. He protects people even when they fear him. He tries to build connections even when he doesn't fully understand them. And most importantly, he takes responsibility for the consequences of his actions, even when that means losing someone he cares about. That's what makes his story in The Brave and the Bold so effective in my eyes. After everything that happens with his son, Red Tornado carries on, still questioning, learning, and trying to understand the people he protects. Ultimately, the message is that being a person isn't about how you're made or what you're made of, it's about what you choose to do, especially when those choices are difficult. Okay, that's it for this essay. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really liked the video and feel like tossing a buck or two my way, please consider using the thanks button, because every little helps. And if you have really enjoyed my work, you might want to pick up a copy of my book, Rogues Gallery. It features 22 essays on villains from Batman the Animated Series. There's a beautiful cover by Batman the Animated Series background artist John Calmette, a foreword by director Dan Reber, and a moving segment from the late Kevin Conroy sharing his thoughts on life, love, and loss. Plus, an exclusive essay on the Condiment King that will never be made into a video. Rogues Gallery is available worldwide on Amazon, both digitally and in softcover. Finally, channel memberships are just $1.99 a month and give you early access to my essays, custom emojis, and your name featured on my members end screen, which has been rolling for a little while now. Huge thanks to everyone who's already part of this. You've helped to make these videos possible. If you want to see your name up here too, join the channel now. And while I have your attention, please consider checking out my other channel, Serum Lake Comics, where I talk about mostly DC comic books. Next time. When I return on Monday, it's time to get all nostalgic for a classic episode of Batman the Animated Series where Batman meets his hero. Yes, we're going to talk about Beware the Grey Ghost. And next Friday, it'll be time to talk about another android, but one that wanted to learn his true purpose in life. Yeah, we're going to talk about Amazo. Hope to see you then.